Hey ladies, how are
Hi,
y'all doing?
fine. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
I can see top of your head now, Danielle. Hey, Jeff is joining us. Hey Jeff. Jeff, how'd you enjoy the conference? Jeff, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
How was the conference?
It was a good conference. I got some good information.
Yeah, and it's more directed towards the students that are in the doctoral program, but
Yeah.
there were some things to learn, but it also gave you an opportunity to see, is this something that I am interested in doing next?
Yeah.
So that's good. Dr. Lamb said he saw you there.
Yeah. So Dr. Lamb, he introduced me to the new dean of the education department.
Well, you've met him before I could meet him. That's it. Nadine, you should have a bigger smile on your face today. Thank you, Nadine.
I I have a big smile.
I know it. All of you should. Um, it's getting close. Danielle, you look tired. I got you. Okay. Let's give it another minute or two. I have heard from some. There's, which is what we want. There have been, in the last couple of weeks, some have gotten jobs and they're at some training. So, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. If you would, whoever, if there's some, I don't want to have to mute tonight. So if you've got sound in the background, please take care of it on your end so that when we do talk, I can, you can unmute yourselves and we can all talk. There's not going to be a lot of us tonight, so I did want our time to be as much as face to face as we could if we were in a classroom. So that's what I was hoping for. Thank you. Okay. So everybody's joining us. Okay, it's okay if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself, and then if I see that there's a problem, then we'll do it because I want it to be very informal. So if you would just unmute yourselves and let's just have a candid conversation over the next few minutes. I don't know if might not be able to. Might not be able to. Let me. Okay, that's. We'll try it like we've got it. Have you checked your email in the last hour? Okay, everybody knows that Dr. Lamb there has been a major storm where he is. He has no capacity to join us tonight. In the meantime, he was able to send me the documents that I have forwarded to you already in an email. They're very good documents. So I would ask between now and next week to take the time to I would make copies of all that and put it in a folder somewhere. It's just good stuff to have, and just make sure that you take time to look at it between now and next week, and we will pick up next week where where we were going to actually end up tonight with Dr. Lamb sharing. Dr. Lamb has had a few years ago. He actually had some professional training. He is certified through Gallup with the interview process. So he has some. That's all. A lot of that stuff came from when he did his training with Gallup for with the interviewing techniques. As far as the task stream is concerned, all of you should feel like that a weight has been lifted from your life, and you should actually you should almost see the end of the tunnel, not just a light, but you should almost see the end of the tunnel. I know that with work and with everything else, I know it has been it's been a big responsibility, but as we have said over and over again, Administration is a big responsibility, and that is what you have been working very, very hard for the last 5 semesters to prepare yourself for. What I want to talk about tonight for just a little bit is the strengths-based leadership book that you read and the assessment that you completed. I have heard from about 98% of you. The other 2%, you know who you are. You need to get that to me if you have not gotten it to me. But I guess the one thing that was consistent from every one of you was that there was no surprises, really, for the most part. For the most part, you could have probably gone through the list and said, well, this is me, this is me, this is me, this is me. There were a few surprises, and, you know, none of it is without, you know, it's not going to be 100% proof. I would say that according to the back of the book that you read, there's some research information back here that shows, you know, about 95% of everything, the information is going to be valid. So pretty much it's on target. What it says you are, that's pretty much what you are. But what I want to talk about for just a little bit is this book is something that you're going to want to keep on your professional shelf. I consistently refer back to it, you know, with you know, throughout the year with other classes as well. But at the very back of the book, it's on page 239. I don't even know if you had an opportunity to even get to that part. But this is a section, it's additional resources. And a lot of times when you've got a lot of other things going on, those are the sections that you just say, I don't have time to mess with that right now. But this is a section that is worth messing with. It actually talks about your strengths and the research behind the Strengths Finder. And now let's just think about this over the next few minutes while we're talking, and then I'm going to ask some of you to chime in after I get through saying a few things. Think about this. As a classroom teacher, you think about the students that you have worked with, and those of you that are already in administration, think about the teachers and the other staff members that you work with. Throughout my career, I've always tried my best to make sure that no matter what the circumstances were, no matter what the situation I was dealing with was, especially if I was having to, well, even reprimanding my own child. You know, many times the success was in, you know, it's easy to find something wrong with somebody, you know, that's easy. But if you can look for the positives, if you can look for the strengths in that individual, and you can begin focusing on that, and when it comes time to deal with the problem or the problem areas, it's so much easier to move into that instead of just starting out with the negatives or everything that's wrong. Just think about ourselves. You don't want somebody always telling you, you know, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. So, you know, one of the lessons learned from this book is that, and the research behind it proves that we should begin with focusing on our strengths, those areas that we're the strongest in. Now, there were 26, 27 of you in this class. And while some of you would have similarities, there's not one of the 27 of you that are exactly alike. Every one of you, when you take if I could share the results of this inventory with all 27 of you, everybody's results, then you're going to find, well, this person is similar to me in this area, but there's not going to be any 27 that all 5 of those strengths came out just alike. I promise you that. And the research proves that. But when we focus on the strengths of individuals, and I'll use this. When I was a principal, I would focus in when I was a high school principal, especially, and I had more than one assistant principal. Even my assistant principals, they had their strengths. So what did I do? I tapped in on the strengths. But when I tapped in on the strengths, I knew that this assistant principal could handle things in this area a lot better than this assistant principal. So when I was making assignments and I was looking at, what areas they were going to be in charge of over the year, then naturally I was going to put them in charge of the areas where their strengths were. However, one of the other things that I did, I would always try to look at an area that maybe they weren't as strong in. And while I'm not going to put you in charge of everything that you're not as strong in, I'm going to give you areas that also are going to be challenging to you, because we should work towards building those areas. So what I want you to do as a result of this, you know what your 5 strengths are, and you know that you're good at it, and that's what makes you feel good. That's what makes you who you are. And those are the things that's going to carry you in your role as an administrator. But it also gives you an opportunity to look at those areas that, hey, this is an area that I know that I need to work on, and this is more of a challenge. And I don't like to call it weaknesses, because all of us have areas that we need to work in and to work on. So I would say to look at, when you go back and you look at all of those areas, and the packet is on page 101, there were 34 themes that arose from this. And the book will go back and it will give you an explanation of every one of those things. Sometimes in your professional reading, you're not going to read it all at one time, but sometimes pick up this book and just focus on a theme that you know is not your strength. And you need to begin, as you're looking at building your personal action plans for growth, and as an administrator, that is one of the things you're going to have to do. Let those areas that you know that you're not the strongest in, let those begin to be focuses on your action plans for improvement over the year when you're having to present that to your principal, or when you become a principal, when you're having to present that to your superintendent or assistant superintendent that's going to be over you. This is a good focus for you to be able to do that. With that in mind, I want somebody to volunteer to talk to me or talk to the group for just tell me what, after you did the Strength Finder, you give me that aha moment. Who will be willing to just chime in and just talk about what it said to you and actually the results, if it meant anything to you at all. Who would like to join in? Anybody?
I'll do it because I don't like silence.
Okay, go ahead, Nadine. Well, I was going to pick on somebody anyway, so go ahead. Somebody else get ready, because you're going to go next. Kimberly, you're next, okay? Okay. Go ahead, Nadine. Talk about it.
Well, you said like an aha moment, and I'm not sure, like you said earlier, that I had that aha moment. I know that sounds like kind of conceited or whatever, but
it's okay.
How it portrayed me, or how the results came out, I kind of agree with totally. I mean, it said that I'm an achiever. Well, I know I'm type A personality, and I work hard. That's just who I am. I'm a communicator. Like I said, I don't like silence, so I will carry on a conversation. The one thing, I guess the most, I didn't know there was a name for it. How's that? That would be the aha, was context, where it said that I look to the past to understand the present and hopefully into the future. I mean, I know that I do that, but I never knew there was a name to it. So if anything was an aha, that would have been it.
Okay, that's good. Okay, Kim?
Mine came out as my greatest strength was that I was a learner. My aha was, okay, that explains why in my mid-50s I went back to graduate school. And that's the part of what I've done in the past that I enjoyed the most is not just classroom teaching, but working with the adults. And that's both sides of being the learner is also, giving the instruction. And number 5 was a developer. And I thought that all of 5 of mine just kind of worked together. And it was interesting to see that out of some of the questions that seemed very repetitive, that they could come up with some things that I thought were spot on.
Okay. Okay, somebody else. Don't make me call you out.
One
Okay.
thing I noticed,
Okay, who is it? Who is this?
Clarence.
Okay, come on, Clarence.
One thing I noticed about my list, again, there weren't any surprises, but when I look at 1 through 5, I'm thinking about 1 being the highest and 5 being the lowest. And if I ranked them, I would have personally put certain ones higher than others. So I'm not surprised at the list itself, but more so in the order that they were presented.
Okay.
If that's such of a thing.
Yeah, and that's okay. It's okay.
But
Somebody
also,
else. Go ahead, Clarence. I thought you were through. Go ahead.
No, just real quick. I was thinking about, I think we talked about it before, is, even when you do these type assessments, whether it be the Myers-Briggs or whatever, and you tend to evolve as you grow and learn and mature and that type of thing. So I can.
And it's good. And I want all of you to know it's been a very short time that I've been able to know some of you. I've had some of you the whole time as interns, but a lot of you I've only had this semester. So I have really enjoyed reading your work and reading some things. And Clarence, if you don't mind me calling you out, I like the fact that, I think you've recognized, you identified that you were basically more of a shy, timid person, and I looked at, at your, I really enjoyed looking at what has helped you become who you are today. Those things, it hasn't always been easy, has it?
No.
And, and you've overcome a lot of obstacles, and you should be proud of this moment, just like many of the rest of you should. But, again, looking at those strengths and then focusing on the areas that maybe were not your strengths, I think, Clarence, that you're going to be able to tap into those, and you're going to be able to help it not only become a better person, but become a stronger administrator or an educator as you're moving up the ladder. I really enjoyed reading some of the things that you shared with me towards the end, though. I thank all of you for your transparency, with the work that you turned in. Somebody else? Okay, Paula, you're next.
Okay, I guess I knew this, but I didn't know there was a name for it. The WOO, W-O-O. I guess I'm pronouncing it right.
Yes.
Well, I can talk to anybody. I really don't care who it is or where they're from or the reason they're there. I'll talk to anybody. And I do like to get to know people. So just like at work, if there's a new person there, then I'm probably going to be the first person to talk to them. And I think that's a good attribute to have if you're in a leadership position, because you need to be open to meeting new people and talking and not be afraid to have conversations with people. So I knew that. I just didn't know there was a name for it. And I definitely didn't know it was called WOO. So.
Okay. Somebody else. And we're not going to do round robin with everybody. I just wanted enough to, Abby, talk to us.
Sorry, I joined in late. I was trying to listen.
That's okay. That's okay. Talk about your assessment.
Yeah, mine, which I reflected on, did not surprise me at all.
You told me that.
I feel like are definitely they stand out sometimes too much. And I need to work on balancing other areas. But one thing that really, I didn't know this would be a leadership strength into this book, was individualization was my number one. And it kind of, thinking about over the past few years in my school and some leadership stuff, it made sense to me, because that's what frustrates me the most. The lack of individualization, I think, among a lot of leaders. And I think it's a big thing because you generalize a lot of stuff. So it just kind of was an aha moment to me. That's why it frustrates me so much.
Right.
And I think it is a really busy career. So how do I balance that strength with also getting the million other things done? I've been doing a leadership position over the summer. And that's something I've kind of struggled with. And then I've kind of beat myself up on the way home because I feel like I might not have individualized enough to other strengths. And so I'm kind of working on balancing that right now.
Well, I've learned you over the last year and a half. You're your own worst enemy anyway, Abby, and I think we all are sometimes. And I think what you're going to find, those of you that I have worked with over the last year and a half, Nadine, you are too, you beat yourself up. Once, and this would apply to all of you, once you get an opportunity, if you've been where you are for a while and you've been there the whole time you've done your internship, once you can go to make a new home somewhere, once you change job location, you're going to see things differently than what you see it now, because every there's going to be culture wherever you go. And this whole experience for most of you has been in one place. But as you have worked over the last 5 semesters and you have built your portfolio and you've done the 6 evidences, you've based it all, you're going to see where when you go somewhere else, it's not always going to be the same. Annie, I think you've had that experience already, and you've seen both sides of the coin, and some of the others of you may have as well. So, opportunities are going to be, some will be similar, but for the most part, you're going to find that those opportunities are going to be different, challenging, but it's going to be good experience for you. I would tell you, as you are beginning to look for, those of you that are not in administrative roles yet, as you are aspiring for an assistant principalship, I will tell you, do not pick and choose in your mind. Say, well, I'm not going to have this. You need to be willing to take the opportunities that are out there. You need to be willing to go into areas that maybe that you don't feel so comfortable with. And I'll use this as an example. I have an elementary background. I was an elementary school teacher. Went into the middle grades when middle school was first founded. So I was one of the first middle school teachers when they founded that concept. But I have an elementary background. Well, even my assistant principalship jobs was at an elementary school. So for 15 years, that's all I knew. That's all I had. Well, the superintendent, when I got my first principalship, if you've traveled down Interstate 95 and you know where South Carolina line is as you're going south, you've seen south of the border. Many of you have traveled as you've gone to Florida. Well, my first job, I said Buenos Dias to Pedro every morning as I turned at exit 2 and went to Roland to the middle school. I mean, I went as far south as you could go without going into South Carolina. My buses had to actually turn around. But anyway, that was a learning curve because I went into an environment that was entirely different, a culture that was so different from what I had been accustomed to for 15 years. But it was a great learning experience. Well, I had no high school background at all. None. Nilch. Well, after 2 years, you kind of know it's a very small school that I was placed as principal, and you kind of know that that's training ground for somewhere. Well, after 2 years, I said, well, my time is about up here, and I knew that in July when they make all the fruit basket changes sometime with administration. I said, well, I know I'm going somewhere. Well, the rumor was that I was going to a pre-K 8 school. Well, guess what I did? I got in my car and I just drove to where that school was. I drove and I rode around that community, and I had my mindset that that's where I was going to go because that was the rumor. But when the superintendent called me in that summer, he broke the news to me, I guess, just as gently as he could. He said, I am going to send you to X high school. Well, if I had had false teeth, they would have fallen on the floor because that was the farthest thing from my mind. And I thought, I was scared to death. But I will tell you, I spent 6 years at that high school, and it was the 6 best years of my professional career. So don't write those opportunities off. Don't think, well, I don't have that background, I don't have that training. It's an opportunity to grow and learn. You've heard people say, well, just go for that interview, just go for the experience. Just get the experience. Well, count it as experience, but you should never go for an interview that you're not willing to accept the job if they offer it to you. Ever. So I would say don't begin limiting yourself to the opportunities that are out there. You may have to drive a distance to begin with to get your foot in the door. You may have to drive an hour to work. I had to drive 45 minutes, to my first principalship. And they didn't even have a restaurant in the town. You had to go to the service station if you had an after-school activity to get a box of fried chicken and that was your supper because there was nowhere else to go, So, those are the kinds of things that you have to be willing to do. I will tell you this, as you are looking for opportunities, don't focus on just the assistant principalship while that's what most of you are aspiring for. There are other leadership opportunities that will open the door for an assistant principalship. So look at opportunities to become reading literacy coaches, math coaches, deans of students. Those are opportunities for you to show your leadership skills, and they will highlight you, and they'll be able to see, hey, that person's good. I would really like for this person to be an assistant principal, and that will lead you into a role. So don't limit yourself. Look for those other opportunities that are out there and when I say this, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the classroom, but you wouldn't have gone into this if you were not ready to move out of the classroom and to do something else. So if the challenge is that, that there's not an assistant principalship readily available, don't limit yourself. Look for those other opportunities that may be in your district. Something else that you need to think about is think about the districts outside of your district. What is in the next county? You may have to move out of your county to begin with. As long as it's in driving distance, and be willing to do that as well. Dr. Lamb is going to. I sent you those materials that he asked me to send to you. I want you to look through those materials. Begin writing down questions this week that you would like to ask. And if you're already in an assistant principalship, then you should be thinking about, what is it going to take for me to get to the next step? What do I need to do? One of the things that you can focus on is when you do interview, what has been identified according to research. What has been identified as your 5 strengths. You need to talk about that. You're going to be asked the question inevitably, why do you think you are the best candidate for this job? Why? talk about your strengths. Talk about why you would become a vital, integral part of an administrative team. On the other hand, you're going to be asked the question inevitably. It comes out. They're going to say, what's your strength and what is your weakness? That's going to come out. I don't want you to focus on a weakness. I don't want you to even say that word when you interview. I want you to say, while I know what my identified strengths are, I know that there are areas that I'm not as strong in, and I want you to focus on those other areas in here as areas that you're going to grow in. I don't want you to even address them as weaknesses in your interview. Sometimes that can become a trap, and it can come across negatively. So I don't want you to allow anybody that's interviewing you to pull you into that trap, and don't consider them to be weaknesses, from the beginning. They're always, we always have areas that we can grow professionally in, and that's what I hope one of your big takeaways is going to be from your reading in this book, is that these are areas that I can grow in. That's going to happen. What are some questions, just off the wall questions, that you might have at this point before we meet with Dr. Lamb next week, and he talks about some of the things that he's going to talk about from the Gallup research? Anything? Okay. How many are you going to graduation? Okay. Make sure I will be, Dr. Lamb and I will be over in Tucker Student Union, and that's where Student Center, and that's going to be where the reception will be after graduation. Please make sure that you find us if you're going to be there. I'd love to take a picture with you. I'd love to speak to you. Those that I've not had a chance to meet face to face, I would love to meet you face to face, if you're going to be there, and be a part of that celebration that you're going to have. There's a few of you that still owe me a little bit of work. You know who you are. Get it to me. In the meantime, read that material, and if you need me this week, feel free to reach out to me. You have my phone number. You can call me if you need to. You have my email address. You can email me. And even after this program is over with, please stay connected with me and let me know the good things that's going to happen for you. Are there any questions at this time? Well, I've enjoyed working with you this semester, and I look forward to our last class next week. Okay? Y'all have a good night.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.